You're about to hear a radio interview with Thaba. Gabz FM called her to ask her thoughts on challenging fathers to spend more quality time with their children and those of the community. In the background of the interview will be a slideshow of her husband and their kids in order to inspire people with practical ways fathers can spend time with children.
I think the perfect person to be having this conversation with is Mrs. Ashley Thaba. I'd like to introduce her. Ashley, as I mentioned, is a motivational speaker, but beyond that, she's a life coach. She's a team building facilitator. She's written a couple of books.
Before you do that, real quick.
Oh, okay.
Okay, no, we lost that one.
Okay. So she's written a few books, and this conversation is inspired by an article that she wrote, Stand in the Gap, Fathers. Miss Ashley, Mrs. Thaba, thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thanks for inviting me.
We just wanted to quickly take your, the sort of perspective that led to this article being written, particularly because it's a conversation that we have here every Monday evening from 7:00, and it hit the nail on the head, so to speak, in how you unpacked it. This article you were speaking on filling the gap, or men or fathers filling the gap. If maybe you can let us know what gap you were referring to and how you came to write this article.
Well, okay, so I write every week for the Monitor, the Mehi Monitor, and what I try to do in that column is just try to address real issues in the society that we can address to add value. And one of the issues that I think, which you've already said that you're talking about, which I'm encouraged to hear that lots of people are talking about it, now let's hope we can start doing something about it, is that there's an absence in a lot of homes. A lot of people are being raised without fathers. And so the thing that led me to write the article is that I had been leading a marriage retreat. And so one of the ladies was saying, but it's hard because there's no good men like that are marriage material. And so, of course, at first people just kind of laughed. And then because it was a seminar and it was a question-answer dialogue, I was like, hey, let's sit down and bottom this. Why would you say that? Do you really believe there's not Botswana men? Because I'm an American and I found a Botswana husband, And so we kind of started picking it apart. And I don't think we have enough time to go into the details of that conversation. But the bottom line we realized is that a lot of the people in the room, in fact, I think 80% of the people in that room were raised by single moms, which means they didn't have that father figure when they were being raised. So that was the representation of just a small group of people in that room. We look at, I also do some work with the Ministry of Local Government. We've been talking about some family issues there. And that's another thing that they're really dealing with is the average home now is usually a single parent mom home in Botswana. So then these men, who is teaching them how to teach a woman? Who is teaching them how to respect women? And there's psychological effects to growing up without a father. They're more likely to be aggressive. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of anger in these boys that are raising up gangs and bullying, and they're more likely to do poorly in school, which we're seeing that with our low education rates, and more likely to be depressed and to commit suicide, more likely to do drugs. There are psychological studies that show that there are effects on boys. Well, there's girls too, but that article was specifically about men. And so I think a lot of the effects that we're seeing in our society can be directly linked back to the lack of the male role model in our community. And so I think we have to come up with some creative ways to deal with that because we're all dealing with the effects of it.
What opportunities exist to a man who's listening right now and is agreeing with what we're saying? He's currently nodding and and saying, yes, exactly, those are the issues. What opportunities do you see, and have you, brainstormed over with the people that you engage with that exist for the strong, positive male, which there are plenty of them in the country,
right? But
of course, there's now a gap that you, as you rightly mentioned in this article. Now filling this gap, what opportunities exist?
What I said in this article, and again, somebody can, if you don't get all these, if you're listening to this, is I was challenging the men who are strong and godly to stand up and do something. So a few things specific I said was like, for example, maybe you have a sister or a cousin that's raising a son and there isn't a father figure because the father is gone or whatever. Then maybe take that little boy and play soccer sometimes. Or, if you go do work at a farm, go do work at a farm with him. Or, just something that just takes that little boy and says, I care about you. I've noticed you. I'm putting effort into you. You are valuable to me during those foundational years when you can pour into his self-esteem. Or another thing I was saying was, it's like giving me feedback. I don't know why. Oh. Is it messing up on that side?
No, we're hearing you quite clearly.
Okay. another thing I was saying was you can identify kids at school that are your kids' age and maybe sort of adopt, like literally adopt, but sort of take them in. Like in our street, for example, a lot of the kids come and play at our house because I let them play there. So, be that family that allows some of these kids to come and play at your house. And like even just this past weekend, another one of my friends, of course, I have a husband, Mr. Thaba, so I'm a fun guy. But we have a couple that lives in Tamaha, and they take my son every now and then for the weekend, and they just play in the village. And my son always comes back very rejuvenated. And I'm thinking, what if a mom, a single mom, and you as maybe a married couple, or it doesn't matter, taking their little boy and saying, hey, why doesn't he come spend the weekend with us? And then just letting play with your boys and watch you interact with your wife and interact in a healthy home, so he gets to see what that looks like. Or, I work with youth. I've been working with the youth for about 19 years. And I can tell you that most youth in this country do not talk to their parents about like girl-boy relationships. And so, even if you just identify a young man that is starting to look at women, and think about marriage and saying, hey, do you want to go for coffee? And let's talk about some of these issues. Because he has to talk about it with somebody, or else he's going to get it from what he observed. And what he observes right now is not always the best role model, So those are some practical. I could think of some more, but I think I'm kind of talking a lot. Do you want some more?
I think those two examples are absolutely the examples we'd like to focus on today, where you mentioned with the young man and the young boy as well as the young man, and sort of those transition periods in their lives. One more question though, Ashley, and this one then we'll give it over to the listeners, our friends listening. What challenges would you foresee happening? Because we need to identify the barriers that would exist for that to happen, so that we can tackle those as well. What barriers, if any, do you foresee happening in those type of scenarios?
I think the one is obviously men just saying, I'm too busy. I don't have time for this because I'm too busy. And that's the first one. And it's just kind of this is not my problem. That's somebody else's problem, somebody else's family. It's not my problem. And so that's the first one, I think, too busy. Now, another one, which is just one that as we hashed out this, when I was thinking about this with some of my married friends, is you go to a single mom and you're a dad, and you're like, hey, let me help pour into your child. Then it can also create a wrong attraction, which can set you up for an affair. So I would think if you're going to do something like this, you should try to, even if it's the man pouring into the little boy when they come to the house, it should be the wife trying to arrange that with the single mom. Otherwise, you're also setting yourself up to get into the mom is like, oh, this man is showing interest in me and my son, and then before you know it, you've got an affair, and now that's a whole nother, problem. So I think those would probably be the two main, is men actually doing what I'm saying and reaching out to these ladies, but then it creates,
It create a bit of conflict.
A detraction, conflict. Or then just saying, look, it's not my problem. I don't care. Like, that's not my problem. And they just say I'm busy and they don't do it.
Well, actually, perhaps, isn't it also...
Before you do, Mr. Osh, all right, just quickly... Oh, we lost that one.
Isn't it also...
There it is. Gabz FM, good evening.
Yes, hello. I'm listening to your call and program, and I'd love to...
Please go ahead, sir.
As well to show.
Please go ahead, sir.
Yes, I'm calling from Habarani.
Okay, sir.
And I know this is a wide topic, and I would love for listeners and yourself to listen carefully so that there's no judgment after I finish speaking.
Right.
So I'm a Zambian national,
okay, sir.
And currently dating a Musana woman with who I found the children already.
Okay, sir.
And I've taken them on as my children. So it's not very difficult to raise these kids as your own. But the culture around also almost laughs at us, especially foreigners, that we come here and we probably find it easy to love or look after people's children and so on. So I think sometimes the issue is, like you're saying, the problem is in Botswana. So people who are coming from outside don't have that problem. So let's see how we can learn from other societies outside how they do it. Yes. Because the point is, I do it very easily. I don't even feel anything. I look at those kids as my children, and I raise them as my children. And for God forbid, even if I broke up with a woman, I'm still going to look at the children nicely, because they probably grew up the early years of their life knowing me as their father. So that has already started. So I think most of it... Come again?
Good job. That's great.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So most of the difficulties I think other men have there is the foreplay of the comments they get from other men. And my encouragement to such men is don't do it. And like I listened about the program you said you watched on television, stand out as a man, do what is right. And once God puts you in that position to be a father to those children, do it right, because there's a reward at the end of the day, because we are Christians at the end of the day. So my encouragement is that society should stop looking out at people who actually do it, because I'm trying to understand what the difficulty is from the program as I'm listening, because I don't see any difficulty in doing it myself. So I think the only difficulty I'm seeing myself is the stereotypes who come here and comment at you like you're dumb, you don't know what you're doing, you don't think, and so on. No, I know what I'm doing, and I want to encourage the other guy who's listening, who's doing it, that's our responsibilities. So let's learn from other societies, because we are doing it somewhere else.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for commenting, my brother.
Thank you.
And I'm glad that this gentleman called and he's from Zambia, because to be honest, you know, Mrs. Thaba, somebody listening right now might say, well, Ashley's white, she's American. How can she possibly know anything that we're dealing with? So I think the take home here is other societies and other people, different people have different things to contribute to our overall society. So thank you, Mrs. Thaba. We've run out of time, but...
Wait, there was a question he was going to ask.
Mr. Osh,
Yes,
before you go, actually, we're just going to take a short break, and then I'm going to come back and ask you that question.
Okay.
Bringing the world to you. Power to engage your world. Gabz FM.
So I said to the board chair, having learned from our mistakes, going forward, we'll be working with PM Academy to do all our project management advisory for key projects.
And what did he say?
Oh man, he just suddenly got excited. He said as long as it's PM Academy, then we're as good as gold.
PM Academy? You mean the project management people?
Yes, the project management people.
Oh wow. But what did the rest of the board say? Did they let you off the hook too?
Well, when I explained that PM Academy has international reach, is BQA accredited, and has over 14 years experience in 12 African countries, what else was there to say?
Gabo, you dodged a bullet. Well done.
pmacademy.co.bw. Your project people in training, advisory, and recruitment.
The views and opinions expressed on this show are not necessarily those of the management or the station. The Gabz FM hotline, dial 395-6962 and have your say, or SMS on 14962 and be part of the conversation.
And we're back, 395-6962, SMS line 14962. Mr. Osh?
Yeah, actually, I was just going to say, couldn't one of the difficulties being men perhaps having, basically just looking down on themselves, am I capable of actually imparting anything worth imparting on this boy? That's not necessarily my son or anybody that I'm related to. Because I think that could be another area where men may not be able to come forward and actually take on that responsibility.
That father, I would say that any attention, like any love you can give. In the article I wrote today, I was even saying, even just to greet, like if you find one, like at church or in your neighborhood, you know, one or two kids that you identify, and just greeting them and loving them and ask them how they're doing. And maybe a specific thing is like, do you have a test this week? You know, and like then the next week make a point of saying, how did that test go last week? You know, just something that shows I care. You don't have to be a psychologist. Just anybody likes feeling valued and feeling like somebody cares. So you don't have to know all the right things. You don't have to have been raised even in such a way that you had a great role model. But showing somebody you care, you can never go wrong in that.
So it's all about connection.
Yes, it's that showing that you matter, showing that you care, showing that I value. Those are the things that build self-esteem, and they build love into a community. And so, and they build, you know, that Boto. You said I'm not a Motswana and I'm an American, but because I'm married to a Motswana, I feel very, very.
I meant from somebody listening in right now, just making an assumption without knowing you.
Yes, no, I mean you're true that they say that, but what I will say that one of the values that I saw, I moved here 19 years ago, and there used to be more of this Boto, you know, this sense of like community. Like I'll give you an example. I used to live in Francistown, and the guy next door one time, there was a naughty kid on the street that would kind of steal stuff, and he would just take his like belt and like spank the kid right there in the street. You know, like it was just like everybody's your uncle kind of thing. Like, no, you're not allowed to do that. Nowadays, I think he would probably get like hauled off to jail. Some parent would complain. Like it's very, we live in like these silos. Like this is our wall, this is our world, and you don't touch my kid, I don't touch your kid. We all live in these. And we've lost that, like, it takes a village to raise a child kind of feeling. And I think that you need to get back to that, because it's killing us, is all this individualism. So yeah, I think I'm going on another tangent. I want to be careful because we're out of time.
That's very true. That's very true, Ashley, because like you're saying, and the very reason that we seem to be much more living in silos, it becomes a little bit more difficult when you're thinking, okay, if you are saying you want to, men to stand up and be able to impart, good values on sons, so to speak, one might say, look, we're living in a very diverse times today. What do you really consider when you say, good morals, and who could be a father that could be trusted with somebody else's child? Those are, I think, the complications that perhaps we have to go through. How do you get around that?
I don't know. I mean, like I said, that has to be, I guess the mother has to also be careful who's pouring in. Yeah. But if you are a good man and you know that you're doing nothing wrong, then I would just say keep at it. Let me just give you, talking about learning from other cultures. We have this program in America. My mom is a psychologist, a child psychologist. So this is stuff that I've been around my whole life. And one of the things we have in America is called Big Brother, Big Sister program. And it's a government program, and it's run, basically the social workers identify at-risk kids. And so they ask people from the community, and they vet them, talk about how do you get around like people that have bad intentions. They vet these people, and so people from the community are challenged to volunteer to be big brothers and big sisters to these at-risk kids that the social workers in the school have picked out to say, this kid, that if we don't pour into him now, he's going to now cause problems later. And so you're encouraged to like celebrate their birthday. You're encouraged to like take them to church with you, to like go to their school plays, the prize giving. Basically, you're supposed to be like their big brother, big sister. So it's a program that could be easily run out of like the Ministry of Local Government here.
Absolutely.
And it would take people in the community volunteering to say, okay, I'm going to pour into this kid now before he breaks into my house later because no one ever taught him, good values. Because that's what people have to realize is we are all going to be affected if we don't pour in. It may not be your problem today. It will become your problem tomorrow when he smashes and grabs your window.
Absolutely.
You see what I'm saying? Like, yeah.
Absolutely. Are you getting any interest since this article? Are you seeing any people coming forward and volunteering? What's the reaction?
Well, I mean, the article I just wrote today, so I haven't got time to understand. But I have a Facebook page called Mom to Mom Parenting Consultation, and 23,000 people, because on Facebook it shows you the number.
Yes.
But now it's probably more. But over 23,000 people, and they were writing, saying like to their friends, saying, "Please read this article. Adopt a boy." Like, please read this article. This is what I need to do. I mean, so like when they were sharing it, they were tagging it with comments. And I mean, of course, I don't know if anybody actually started doing it. Not several, like thousands of people it was resonating with them to say, we've got to start doing something like this. And that's what we just have to realize is that we all have to encourage each other. And somebody has to start doing it. Quit talking about it.
Wonderful.
Brilliant.
Thank you so much, Ashley. I know we can find you on that Facebook page, Mom to Mom Parenting Consultation, even YouTube. You have a YouTube channel.
Yeah, I do have a YouTube channel. And then next week I'm going to be writing again on the Monitor about how men can pour into boys, like specific values they can pour in. So if people want to go read next week, that's what I'll be talking about.
Perfect. So we'll definitely get a copy of the Miri Monitor next week, Monday, so that we can see the practical steps of implementing this filling of the gap.
Yes. Thanks for calling.
Thank you.